again, class. It's good to see you. And you'll notice today we're going to try out our fancy, I guess they call it a smart board. So we'll see how that goes. Today our topic is classification essays. So more about writing than reading, but a lot to learn. It's our main focus of our writing class this session. So I hope you get lots of important information from this today. First of all, the verb classify is the verb. Classification is the noun or adjective here. To classify means to divide objects or people or ideas into groups. To group is another verb we can use, or to classify. So that's what we're going to be doing. And every time we make these groups, we're using a particular principle or a classification principle. We do this every day, but we don't even realize maybe what our classification principle is. So for example, every week I want to go to the supermarket, or I need to buy many different things for my house. And I can group the types of things I want to buy in different ways. So I might think about food, and that's one type. Cleaning products, that's something else I might need to buy. Paper products, toilet paper, paper towels, that could be a third group. We could also group them by the stores where I buy them. So some things I buy at Kroger, other things I buy at Walmart, and sometimes I shop at Aldi. So I could group them in 3 different categories based on the store where I buy them. Sometimes I buy things every week. Sometimes I have to go twice a week. Sometimes I buy things only once a month. So I could group them based on how often I need to buy them. So there's many different ways to group the same set of items. Now, let's take a look in your book. This is page 18. There are a few sentences here. These are thesis statements. And we are going to read these statements and then choose which is the classification principle that we're using, which is understood from this. So, we have deep sea fishing. Well, that didn't work. 1 second. Deep sea fishing, shore fishing, and river fishing are the kinds of fishing most people enjoy. So, what do you think is the classification principle if these are our 3 groups? The size of fish you catch, where you do the fishing, or how much you like the activity? These are all locations to me, deep in the sea, along the shore, and in a river. So I think B is our correct answer in this case. So let's, scroll down to the next one. In the gym where I work out, there are front row people, middle of the room people, and back row people. So what is the classification principle that we use to make these 3 groups? Where people usually place themselves, whether they're outgoing or shy, or their height. What do you think? Yeah, where they usually place themselves. Some people work out in the front row, some are in the middle, some are in the back. Mexican, Thai, and Italian are the 3 types of restaurants in my town. What do you think is the classification principle? Nationality of the owner, the type of food that is served there, or the neighborhood the restaurant's in? Yes, the type of food, B. And lastly, there are 2 types of high schools in the United States, public and private. So what is the classification principle? Quality of instruction, qualification of the teachers, or the payment for the school? Right, C, payment for the school. When we, let's see here. When we're going to start a classification essay, the first step, step 1, is to brainstorm. What does brainstorm mean? If you think about a storm, a very bad storm with lots of wind and things are flying around in the air like in a tornado, that's kind of what's happening in our mind. So we have all these ideas just going around in our mind, and we just take all these ideas and anything goes. There's no wrong answer in brainstorming. We just think of everything we can, and we write down as many examples as we can think of in our category. So we choose a topic, or perhaps our teacher gives us a topic, but I will always give you 3 topics to choose from. So you'll choose one and then think of every example you can in that topic. And you'll write all those out. There's no order, no correct order or way to do it. You can write them all over the page. You can make a list, whatever works for you. Just anything you can think of. Step 2 is organizing all those ideas. Brainstorm and then organize the ideas. So you look at the list or the page with all your ideas, all your examples, and see what groups you can start to see among all those examples. Once you decide which groups you're going to use, you won't use all your examples. Some won't fit in one of those categories very well. And some categories might not have very many examples, so you might have to add some new ideas once you choose what your groups will be. Let's take an example from our book on page 31. 31. Alrighty. So, grouping ideas logically. Once you have a list, maybe we're thinking about things we need to buy at the supermarket, and here's a list of everything we have. Move that up a little bit. Okay, so, what's that? All right, so these are all the things, and they give us the categories in this case. We have produce. What is produce? Fresh fruit and vegetables. So we have, let's see, apples, carrots, oranges, lettuce, potatoes, tomatoes. I think those things all fit in produce. What else? Dairy products? Dairy, things with milk, cheese, eggs are usually there too. I think that's it. Dairy products are red, and then we'll do blue for, what do we have? Let's do baked goods. Donuts, cake, cookies, pie, bread, things that are baked, right? Oh, no, that's this one. So if we have this list, we can group them according to these things. In this example, the supermarket, these are the departments in the store. And why we would do this, it's actually very useful for shopping, because it will help you get through the store much quicker if you know exactly, if all these things that are produce, they're in the same place in the store. So if we write them in the same place on our list, it will help us find them more easily. All right, let's delete that and come here to the second example. This is again on the same page in your book, page 31. This example is about sports. So they've already done the brainstorming for us. These are all the sports that we could think of. But here we need to come up with our own categories. So if we're looking at this list, there's many different ways that we can group these things, right? We could look at individual sports versus team sports. We could look at, let's see, things we do outside or things we do inside. Or we could do something a little more complex. Like I'm seeing a lot of things that are very adventurous. So I think, let's see, scuba diving, to me, let's try that again. Scuba diving seems like a very adventurous sport. Same with mountain climbing. and windsurfing. These seem like really adventurous. Then I also see some very casual or informal sports people just do on their own, like bowling, fishing, golf. You could be a professional at any of these things. Table tennis, badminton, these are, Olympic sports and serious for some people. But here in the US, most people just do these things for fun in their own time. And then lastly, I see some team sports, volleyball, soccer, baseball, basketball. So these could be our groups. Maybe we write team sports. Our blue was, we need to finish the end there. Team sports, we have adventure sports. And then I think these are casual, just informal things. So then we put them in these groups. When you're thinking about how to group things, you should think about how easy it will be to write about it. So do I have a lot I could say about these three groups? Or do I have more I could say about team sports versus individual sports? Do I have more that I could say about indoor sports versus outdoor sports? So think about which you'd have the most to talk about, and also think about a connection to yourself, because it's always easier to write about something that you're very familiar with. So if you can say there are 3 types of sports I enjoy, you'll be able to write more about it than if you talk about just 3 types of sports in general. Also, we need to make sure that our categories don't overlap. So on page 33 in your book, we have an example here of clothes. If you're going to divide all the types of clothes you own, and your categories are work clothes, summer clothes, and casual clothes, those might be okay categories. But actually, you can have some work clothes that are for summertime, and some casual clothes that are also summertime, so they overlap. And then these things, they're not easy to write about when things overlap. Those aren't good groups. But if we change it to formal clothes, work clothes, and casual clothes, it's very easy to see that those things are worn in very different times. So in this case, the classification principle is maybe how formal the clothes are, or where you wear them, to formal occasions, to work, or just every day. So that would be our classification principle. Farther down on the same page, we have an exercise. So how many ways can you think of to divide the students in your class? They gave us one example, the dominant hand. So here we have 2 groups, right-handed people and left-handed people. So take a few minutes and think about other categories. You can pause the video, make a few notes, and come back and see me when you're finished. I think in our class, we could divide the group based on where the students are from. We could base it on gender. We have male and female. We could group people according to age. I don't know how many groups we have, depends on how many ages there are. Many different ways that you could group the students. But again, what would make the most interesting essay? Could you write a 5-paragraph essay about right-handed and left-handed people? I think there's probably not that much to say about that. But if you wrote an essay about where everyone's from, you could find some real interesting things to say. So, in our next class, we will read an example of a classification essay during our reading session. And then during the writing part, we will practice these things together. We'll brainstorm some ideas for a few different topics and plan how we would organize an essay. We won't actually write the essay, but just planning how we would do it. That's what we'll focus on next. And we'll talk about thesis statements. So we have a lot to look forward to. And I know you're excited, but for now, go relax and enjoy your weekend. I will see you next time. Thanks.